Alright, welcome back to the Crabby. Today we're going to learn how to play Praga, Caput, Regni from one of my favorite designers, Vladimir Suchi. So this is a Euro game with a lot of different mechanisms. We're going to be placing tiles, getting tiles, upgrading our actions, just a lot of things going on. Alright, so this is the setup and rules video. Click on the link below if you want to see my review or playthrough videos. Like usual, before we start, please like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel. That'd be great. Let's go. Alright, so let's take care of the setup. Now before we start, a couple of things. First, you're going to notice that the board is shifted over here. It's the only way I can fit in my camera, because point two is that this board is actually massive and you need a large table to play this game. And sorry about being so zoomed out. Alright, so let's take care of the setup. We'll start up and work our way down. Alright, so the top left here, you're going to notice there's two different tracks. Now the game does provide you with these 3D representation of the tracks, but these are just nice to have. You don't actually have to play with them. You can just play with what's on the board. So I'm going to leave them out for now. Alright, so on the top left here, this is the wall track, and on the bottom right, or on the right here, this is the Cathedral track. And you're going to put one of each player's cubes on the bottom space where it's written number 1 of both tracks. Alright, now, the section on the top right, this is the action board. If it's your first time playing, make sure to connect the board properly with the pin in the middle. And how are you going to set up? Well, first you're going to set up the arrow over here of the board and point it to the number of players in the game. So this is for a 3-player game. If you're playing 4 players, you'll point it up here, and a 2-player game, you're going to point it over here. Right after that, you're going to have 2 neutral colored cubes in the box. You're going to put one in the little space over here, and you're going to put the other one on the platform here according to the number of players. So we're playing a 3-player game. I'm going to put it right over here. All right, now to set up the action board over here, you have a couple of choices. Alright, these tiles are all double-sided. You have an A side and a B side. What you're going to do at the start of the game is decide which side you want to play on, and all the tiles are going to be the same side. Alright, you don't mix them up at all. Alright, and after that, another couple of choices. You can either set them up in the order given by the rule book over here, or just jumble them together and just put them out in any order. Make sure to start on the 0 space here and work in your way clockwise. Alright, that's it for these 2 sections. Don't forget, each player is going to have a point scoring chit. They're going to go on the 0 space. Alright, working our way down, we do have a couple of sets of tiles over here. These are the town tiles, the wall tiles, and the upgrade tiles. They come in 4 different stacks, and shuffle each of those stacks separately and divide them accordingly. Alright, so you're going to have number 1s. You're going to have the ones with the S's on them. Then you're going to have 2s and the 2s with the S. Alright, the 1s and the 2s mean arrow 1 and arrow 2, and we're going to switch from arrow 1 to arrow 2 during the game. Alright, so forget about arrow 2 stuff for now. And to set up the board, what you're going to do is you're going to take arrow 1 tiles and fill up the first 3, and then use the arrow S tile afterwards. Alright, so for each track here, you're going to have 3 of the regular ones, and then the 4th one here is going to be of the S variety. Alright, after that, looking down the board, you are going to have your production bonuses here. You do have 2 of the same point producing ones here. Don't worry about that. Alright, next is going to be the bridge. You're just going to put your bridge tokens out here. For your bridge bonuses, for the level 5s, you're going to take half of them, shuffle them, and place 3 of them here and the rest below the bridge. And for the 4s, you'll just shuffle them face down and put them where they belong. Alright, next let's talk about the town. Alright, for this, a couple of things you need to set up. First, you have all these plaza tokens. Alright, they're all color coded according to the houses on them. Sorry about the glare. Alright, so these are the silver ones, and what you're going to do is you're going to go on the board and find the silver representation of the houses and just put it in the same spots. Alright, you're going to do that for all the plazas in the town. Alright, you are going to notice though that some of the plazas are only available for a certain amount of players, so in a 3-player game we're not going to be playing with this plaza, for example. When the plazas are set up, you're also going to do the same thing for the preset houses in the town. Alright, so if you're playing less than 4 players, there are some spots where you're going to be filling in with some random level 1 houses or towns from the stack. You're just going to put them in the on the board in any orientation that you want. You can randomize it. Alright, so in a 2-player game, you'll also fill up this one. Alright, lastly in this section here, you are going to have your little traveler pawn over here. I like to keep it on the board over here. You know, according to the rulebook, it has to be off the board, but you can just leave it on the board, and when you make that first action, you can just move on to the board here. Alright, that's pretty much it for the board. Everything else just sits off the board here. You're going to have your tokens, your technology upgrades, your other level 1 and 2 era cards. You're going to have your windows, your eggs, and that's about it. Now for each of the players, they're going to get 2 boards. You're going to have your action board and your player board. Player board is pretty simple. You're just going to fill up all the cube spaces. So you're going to have them here, 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 and here. You're going to have 2 left over, put them above your board. And then you're going to give each player an action board with nothing else on it. That's pretty much the setup. Alright, that's it for the setup, but there are a couple of variants that you can use in the game. I'm not going to be playing with them, but I'll just show you how to set it up. So you do have some King's Road updates over here. So these are 3 tiles that you can introduce into the King's Road to sort of vary up the game. They are all numbered, so make sure to place them in the correct area. You have a number 1, number 2, and number 3. That means this one will always go on the first spot here. The second one will always go here, and the third one will always go there. I'm just going to return these to the box for now. Alright, the second variant you can play with is the updates to the tracks up here. Now, the only rule for this is you must replace the whole track and they must be all on the same side. So if you want to update your Cathedral track like this, well, make sure that they're all on the A side if you're playing on the board, or if you're also playing with the wall, make sure they're all on the A side or the B side. Now, they can each be on either side, so you can put all the walls on the A side and all the Cathedral on the B side, for example, but you can't mix it up, like have some of the tiles on A and some of the tiles on B. And that's pretty much it for the setup. Alright, rules overview time here for Praga. Now at its core, Praga is an action selection game, but it's not a game where you can perform any action you want on your turn. Everything revolves around this action crane wheel on the top right of the board, and this is the main focal point of the game. And this is how I'm going to teach you the game. First we're going to talk about this wheel, and then we'll go through the 6 different actions in the game and talk about all the rules that tie to those actions. Right, now, before even talking about this wheel, very important note about your personal action board. This is going to give you 2 pieces of information. First, the 6 different actions in the game and their icons are depicted on the outside edge of this board. Alright, so for example, this is the upgrade action, the wall action, the King's Road action, and so on and so on. Right. The second piece of information is when you're performing an action, you're actually referencing your personal board because you might have an upgrade on this board. So there are upgrade tiles. For example, this King's Road tile here. Let's say I would have had this upgrade in a future turn. Right? When I'm performing the King's Road action from this wheel, I'm actually going to reference my board here and I'm going to activate this spot, which is not just the King's Road action. I'm actually going to get 2 points, and then that's my action and that's my turn. Alright, so very important. You always reference back to your personal action board. Alright, but we're going to talk about these upgrades later on in the video. Alright, now to teach you how this system works, we're just going to go through a sample turn. Alright, so on your turn, you're going to select one of the tiles. If you pick a tile from the red section here, you actually have to pay. So you're going to see a coin cost, you're going to pay some coins, and then you're going to get to take the tile. If you take it from the blue section here, well, you're actually going to gain points. When you gain points in this game, just move your marker on the outside edge of the board. Alright. But let's say on my turn, I was interested in doing this action, I would pick up the tile. Alright. Now, these are called action tiles, and you get to perform one of the 2 actions depicted on the tile. And like I mentioned before, there's 6 different actions, so you'll see one of the 6 different icons here. Alright, so let's say, for example, I wanted to run my money production, so I'm doing this action. Alright. You also get a bonus on your turn, and that is indicated on the spot where the tile was taken. Alright, so in this example here, I will get a 2 stone bonus, and I will get this action tile to perform one of the 2 actions, and you get to pick the order of this. Alright, sometimes there is a cost, so maybe you would have to activate the tile before paying from the bonus. Alright. After performing both of these actions / bonuses, the tile that you took is going to go to the front of the line, so the green section here, and then you're going to rotate the tile to get ready for the next player. And this is essentially how the game's going to run for the rest of the game. Alright, so the next player in line, let's say he wanted to take this tile, he would get the bonus, then activate one of the 2 actions on the tile. When he's done, adds it to the front of the line, rotates the tile, gets ready for the next player. Alright, and so on and so on and so on. Alright, now there is a way to get a second action on your turn, and it's just a payment you have to do with windows. Alright, so you're going to see it in the yellow section over here. If you turn in a gold and a silver window, or 2 gold windows, you'll get a free action. That's what the 1x with the check mark is all around. Alright, and you get to pick the order of all these actions and bonuses however you like. So you can actually activate the bonus first, then the tile, then the extra action, or vice versa. Activate the bonus first, then the extra tile, and then so on and so on and so on. Just pick whatever order you want. Alright, then you just keep playing. The next player, let's say, wants this tile, activates the tile, activates the bonus, adds it to the front of the line, and rotates the wheel. Alright, so You're going to keep doing this till the end of the game, and that's where the timer comes into play, and that's what I'm going to talk about next, which is the cube here that is sitting in the middle of the wheel. All right, eventually you're going to see that this cube, when you're rotating, is going to fall into a ditch. So it's not going to be able to move anymore. All right, this is an indicator that you're going to move the neutral cube on the platform to the left. All right, you're going to move it down. All right, if you haven't reached the end, well then just raise up the cube from the middle of the wheel, rotate it a little bit, and just keep playing. All right. There are indicators here of when you're going to move from era 1 to era 2, but we'll talk about that later in the video. You're basically just going to clear the board and add new tiles. Alright, but eventually it's just going to keep looping around until it reaches the last spot of the platform. When this happens, alright, it's not the end of the game just yet. You're going to do one more rotation. Alright, there is a chart here which will tell you how many turns each player is going to have depending on the player count. So in a 2-player game, the first player is going to have 5 more turns and the second player is going to have 6 more turns. When you finish that extra revolution and it falls back into the ditch, that's the end of the game. You're going to go to end game scoring. Alright, and that's basically how the game's going to work. It's just going to keep rolling around and around and around. Just a couple of extra notes about this wheel. Alright, it could happen that eventually, well, it will happen, that you have to place the tile and there's no spot available on the green section because it's the arrow. In that case, you're just going to rotate the wheel one extra time and then add it to the front of the line. It is also possible that a tile stays on past the blue section. In that case, you rotate it again and then add it to the front of the line. Alright, let's discuss the inner actions before talking about the more complicated outer actions. Alright, so most of the inner ones just deal with getting resources. So whenever you see gold or stone, you're just going to go on your tracks over here and you're going to be gaining them. Alright, whenever you lose resources, you're going to be moving down the tracks. And then you have other things that you're going to be gaining. So you're going to be gaining either the silver windows. So you just take windows from the general supply. You can turn in stone for eggs. Again, eggs come from the general supply. And you can either get points or the S buildings. I'm going to talk about this later when we talk about the outer actions on how the S symbol works. All right, but everything else is just gathering resources. Now, just as a reminder from the previous section, you can take your inner action before or after performing your outer action. Alright, so the first two actions I want to tackle are the manage quarry and manage mines actions depicted by these icons here. Now the reason I'm tackling both of these together, they're exactly the same action except one is for stone and one is for coins. So if you know how one of them works, you know how the other action works. Alright, so when performing this action, let's focus in only on the stone here. You're going to get one of two actions. You're either going to gain production, that's this icon over here, and one stone, or run your production. Alright, so let's go to our player board and I'm going to show you how both of these work. Alright, so first let's tackle the gaining production and gaining a stone. So gaining a stone, whenever you gain stone, just rotate your wheel. You're obviously going to gain one, so I'll go from 2 to 3, for example. And by, you're going to see this icon over here is gaining production. You're going to move your production token to the right. Alright, you're going to see now I'm going to be producing 4 stone instead of 3 stone when I run my production. Alright, when moving to the right, only 2 special things can happen. You can encounter this token here, which is a production token. And what you're going to do is you're going to go into the river. You're going to take one of the production tokens and add it to your row. Alright, so you're going to see the same row that you encountered that token. So let's say I encountered it during the stone. I'm going to take a token and add it to my stone row. Again, we're going to look at this later when I run my production. Alright, if you do reach the end right over here, these are end game scoring seals. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to take one of your spare cubes and you're going to add it to one of these seals. These are first come first serve, and you're just reserving them for the end of the game and you're going to score that amount of points. The ones on the top there require a payment of windows, right? But you can get more points from them, or you can put on one of these two that don't require any windows. Right? So essentially that's how this action works. Now running your production, right? What you're going to do is you're going to look at what the value is of that stone production, and you're going to gain that much stone to your wheel. So let's say I were to run my stone production now, I will gain 5 stone. Right? When you gain stone, you might encounter these cubes along the way. So let's say I have 3 and I have to get to 8. I'm going to go 4, 5. Oh, I hit a cube. So you're going to remove this spare cube and then you're just going to keep going. So So 6, 7, 8, for example. All right, when you uncover a cube, you're going to gain that bonus. I'm going to talk about these book bonuses in the following section, but for right now, all you need to know is you're going to go up on the book track. So you have both a book track and a hat track right over here. So if you were to gain some hats, well, you'll just go up the hat track, for example. All right, the same thing can happen here. If you were to gain another stone, well, you'll uncover this token, and then you'll get a window from the general supply. All right. After gaining your stone, you also gain whatever icons you see on the track, as well as any production token that you have at the beginning. So in this example here, I will gain 5 stone, 1 point, and then another 2 points. So 3 points in total. All right, so those are the 2 different actions you're going to do, and you're going to pick. You're either going to do the one on the left, or you're going to do the one on the right. All right, let's circle back and talk about the technology and university tracks. All right, the technology track is just a way to get technologies, and what you need to do is whenever your cube hits one of the levels of technology, you're going to take that level of technology stack, take the top 3, pick the technology you want, and add it in front of you. These are persistent bonuses you'll get for the rest of the game. They're usually just when you do this action, then you gain a benefit. So for whatever reason, let's say I wanted to take this action, I would add it to the side of my player board. And then the 2 that I didn't take, I would add it to the bottom of the rest of the same level technologies. So the next player can eventually get to them in the stack. And you're going to do the exact same thing when you hit level 2, level 3, and level 4. For level 2, you're obviously looking at the level 2 technologies, level 3, and so on and so on. All right. Now let's say we ended up here. Now how the university track works is this is strictly endgame scoring. And the end game scoring is written down here at the bottom. What you're going to do is you're going to multiply the number of crowns where your token is. So let's say it ended up here at the end of the game with the 2 crowns, and you're going to multiply it by the level of your technology. So this is a 5. So at the end of the game, this will be 10 points, for example, 2 times 5. Right? The only extra thing you need to know about these tracks is if you end up moving your marker to the top and you gain it again, you're going to see a little 2 points over here. You're just going to gain 2 points. And this token won't be moving up again though. Alright, the next action I want to tackle is the King's Road action, which is represented by this bridge. And for that, we're going to look at the King's Road, which is the gray line, and the bridge itself. Alright, so this whole action is represented by 5 different spaces, and by taking the action, you're going to move on to the next available space. Alright, so there are 5 spaces. You're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is being on the bridge itself. So at the start of the game, you start off the board, you're going to go visit spot number 1. Now, the 3 road actions work exactly the same way. You have an optional egg action, so use an egg to do something, and then the real benefit's going to be after that on the right. Right, and you're going to do the same thing for the first 3 spots. All right, again, mandatory egg action, optional egg action, mandatory real action on the right. All right, after that, when you take this action for the 4th time, you're actually going to go visit the bridge here. And for that, you need to spend an egg to even move here. So if you don't have an egg available, you cannot do this action. But let's say I turn in an egg, I would visit the 4th spot. When you visit this spot, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the top 3 tiles from the silver bridge tile deck. You're going to take one. So let's say I took this one. The other 2 are going to go back underneath the deck of tiles. Right? And then you're going to place this on the bridge. All right. You're going to gain the benefit of whatever's on the tile plus whatever you're covering up. So in this example, let's just say I will gain 2 red tiles and these benefits here. All right, if there are no bridge spaces available when you're taking the silver, you just get the benefit of the tile and then you keep the tile in front of you. All right, so that was for the 4th spot. Now the 5th spot, what you're going to do is, again, you need to turn in an egg. So only for 4th and 5th, you must turn in an egg. If you do, you're going to look at all the gold bridge tiles. You're going to take one of them, and these are going to be endgame scoring only that you're going to score. And just like space number 4, you're going to place this on the bridge and gain the benefits of what you're covering up. So in this example here, let's say I'll gain a window and 2 points by placing it here. When you place the 5th spot or the gold tiles, you're actually going to put your pawn on it because those are the points only you're going to score. All right, and just like the gray ones or the silver ones, if all the bridge spaces are filled up, no worries, you're still going to keep this tile in front of you, put your pawn on it, and you're going to score them at the end of the game. It goes without saying, if you reach the last spot, you cannot perform the road action again. Alright, and also, if you're on the 4th spot and there's actually no level 5 tiles available anymore, you still cannot take this action because there's nothing to do. Alright, and the last three actions to talk about are the upgrade, the walls, and the building actions. Alright, and they're all pretty much the same. You're going to be taking tiles from the game board. Alright, so let's tackle these all one at a time, and let's start off with the upgrade, which is taking from the topmost row over here the upgrade tiles. Now for each of these three sections, they work exactly the same way. You're going to have three regular ones and one with an S. Now to take the one with an S, what you basically have to do is use the bonus S action from the inner wheel when you're performing the action, so it must be available. Alright, so for example here, if I want to do a building action here, I wouldn't be able to take the S one because there's no S from the inner bonus. Alright, but for example here, let's say I want to do the upgrade action, there is an S there, so I would use that as my bonus, so I would be able to take this tile. Alright, and when you take a tile, for upgrades you're going to be covering up the action that's there to make that action even better in the future. So for example, if I'm taking the manage mines action tile, I would put it on top so that all my future manage mine actions, I would also get a stone as a bonus. Alright. Now when placing these tiles on your board, you get to set them in any orientation that you want. I'm going to talk about that later after talking about all the other tiles, because if the tokens sort of match the walls that are on the other side, you're going to get bonuses. But again, I'll get to that later. Alright. The other bonus you're going to get for placing a tile as an upgrade is you're going to see a little hat over here. Alright, and what you're going to do is you're going to move up once on your track on the right here from your personal board. Alright, for era 1 you always move up 1, they're always the same, it's always one hat. And in era 2 it's always 2, so you're going to move up twice. A very important rule is if you already had an upgraded bonus because of a tile, if you were to upgrade it again, you would basically just cover up what was previously there and you lose the power that was underneath, but you still get the bonuses from all the connections that are around the new tile. Alright, next let's talk about the wall action, and these are the gray tiles here on the second row. And this is very similar to the upgrade action, except instead of building tiles on top of your action board, you're going to be placing them around your action board to get adjacency bonuses and to move up on the two tracks up there. Alright, now when taking a tile, same rules apply. You can take either of the three regular ones or the S1 if it's associated with an S bonus action. For example, if I took the wall action here, I would be able to take the S action because the S is there. Right. Now to take any tile, for the walls you do need to pay something. You're going to look at what's in the red and you're going to rotate your wheels according to the cost. So for this example here, I would have to pay 3 stone to take this tile. Now when you take a tile, like I mentioned, you place it around anywhere you're bored and you get to rotate it however you like, and that's going to be important for the adjacency bonuses like you see right over here. Alright, now when you take a tile, it's always going to have a colored marker up here, so it's either going to be blue or red. Alright, for that, these are left or right movement actions on the two tracks up here. So when you're talking about red, you're always talking about the Cathedral sort of, let's just call it a track here, and you're always going to move to the right no matter which row you're on. So if you were at the start of the game, you'd only move once to the right, but let's say it's later in the game and I'm over here, I'm going to again move once to the right. Alright, if it's blue, we're talking about the wall track, and this is moving to the left. So at the start of the game, you're going to move once to the left, but let's say it's later in the game and I was here, again, you're just always moving once to the left. Right. After that, you're going to gain all the bonuses that are on the green window pane from the tile. So in here, I'm going to gain 1 bump up on the book track of my personal board. And then after that, you're just going to sort of assign it wherever you like around your board. Alright, let's circle back and talk about the adjacency bonuses, and that's by placing the upgrade tiles and the wall tiles around where you're just trying to get symbols in the correct area. Alright, so let's show you with an example. So let's say this tile over here, I want to connect it over here as my wall tile, and you're going to see that it has a symbol over here. Now in the future turn, let's just say I would have taken this tile over here, and it is a manage quarry action, so I'm going to have to place it here, but I can rotate it however I like, and let's say I would have put it like this. Now you're going to see that 2 symbols line up. Alright, they don't have to match, you're going to get the bonus for both. So in this case right over here, I'll get a coin and I would also get a window. Alright, so those are one of the different bonuses you can get. The other type of bonus you can get are the symbols in the corner. So let's just say with an example, this is the one that I have. I would have put my manage mines action over here, and then I would have had my walls over here. Alright, when you match up the corners like this, you're going to get that many of the red or blue tokens from the general supply. Alright, they come in 2 flavors, either red or blue. Now on a following wall, if I would add a third one here, I'll get 3 because I'm completing the circle, for example. And those are the 2 different bonuses you're going to get. You're either going to get it from the corners, or you're going to just match up these symbols from the side. Now, you can match up from action space to action space, or from wall space to wall space, or even from wall to wall. Alright, and the last action is the building action, and that's the final row of tiles out here on the game board. And this action is really similar to the walls action. Alright, except instead of building around your own personal board, you're going to be building to the common building sites out here on the game board. Alright, now, when taking these tiles, same rules apply. You can take either one of the left 3 ones here, or the one with the S if the inner bonus action is the one with the S that you're performing. Alright, when taking a tile, you must pay what's at the bottom of the tile, or you cannot take the tile. So just like a wall, so for example here it's going to cost me 3 coins, or this one here is going to cost me 4 coins. Alright, after taking the tile, you're going to get 2 bonuses right away. If there's a green window, you'll take the bonus that's there. And on top, if there's a blue or red icon, just like in the walls, you're going to move yourself up on one of the 2 tracks. Alright, after that, you get to place this tile, and you might also get an adjacency bonus just like in the walls. Alright, now there's 2 areas of the board where you can place the tile. There's the southern part of the King's Road, and then there's the north. The only difference between the 2 is if you place it in the north, there's always an extra cost, but you're always going to get victory points as compensation. So for example, let's say I would place this tile right over here. I would pay an extra coin added to the cost of this tile. Alright, but I would actually get an extra victory point as well. So you move yourself once on the victory point track. And just like I explained before, adjacency rules just like in the walls, I'm going to get an extra blue chit from the general supply. Alright, now there are 2 different kinds of buildings that you're going to encounter in the game. Alright, there's the ones with the square to place one of your spare cubes in, and the ones without. Now these 2, when they're placed on the game board, score in completely different ways. Alright, this is going to be scored right away, and it's a one-time score, and this one you're going to be placing for area majority. Alright, so let's talk about the ones without the squares first, alright, because they're pretty simple. This is going to score, you're going to see the little token up here, the amount of victory points equal to the number of buildings adjacent to the plaza where you're placing the tile. For example, I'm going to show you 2 examples. If I place it next to this plaza over here, alright, remember to get the victory points of placing. But this one, because there's only 1 building around this plaza, is only going to score me 1 point. But if I would place it over here, this plaza has 5 buildings around it now, so this tile is going to score me 5 points. Right, and that's how this scores. Alright, the other tile, the one with this cube, you're going to take your cube and then add it to the game board. Again, remember to look at adjacency bonuses. Alright, and this is going to score when a plaza gets completely surrounded. Alright, so if I would place it up here, this plaza here is not surrounded yet, so it won't score. But let's say I would have placed it here instead. Now this plaza is surrounded, so then you're going to score the area majority. So the way it works is pretty simple. Whoever has the most cubes around is going to get both bonuses of the tile, and whoever's in second is going to get one of their 2 choices. If there's ever any ties, it's shared, you both get the bonus. So let's say there's only 1 person in first, they will get both, and if there's 2 people in second, well, they both get to choose one of the 2 bonuses. Alright, and the bonuses are pretty simple. It's going to be points, victory points, resources. Just look at the tokens. So example here, purple will get 8 points and a golden window. Alright, and then green would choose between 3 points and a golden window, or 5 points. After scoring a plaza, everyone gets their cubes returned to their general supply to be used on other buildings. Alright, let's circle back and talk about these tracks. Now, like I mentioned in the previous sections, if you get a red icon, you move to the right of the Cathedral track, so you just move your marker to the right. And if you get a blue icon, as you see here, you're going to move to the left of the wall track, so you move to the left. Alright, you're also going to notice here on the left and on the right, you can give up 2 windows on your turn to go up on the tracks. So you're going to move up instead of to the left and to the right. Now, when moving up, you're going to see these solid lines. To cross the first solid line here, you have to give up either a coin, you have to give up a coin and a stone. And to move up past the second solid line here, you have to give up a coin and 2 stone to move up here. Alright, other things you're going to be encountering on the board here, you're going to be getting points. So if your token ever ends up on the point space here, you're going to get points on the outside of the board. And these arrows are free movement on the board. You still have to pay when crossing the line. So for example, if I landed here for whatever reason, I'll get a free movement up here, but I would still have to give up a coin and a stone to move up. If you don't, you just stay behind. Alright, and you get to choose the order of the 2 actions. So for whatever reason, let's say I was here and I would get a red symbol. Well, I can give up my first 2 silver windows first to move up, so that I would move up here. Then that would make me move up again. So let's say I would turn in a gold and a stone, so I would move up again. And then I would activate my red symbol, which moves me to the right, and then I would score 2 points on the outside of the board. Lastly, if you ever make it to the top row of the Cathedral track, you are going to see a little icon over here on the top right, and that is an endgame objective bridge tile, just like on the bridge here where you're going to be collecting tiles. You're going to go through the 3 available, you're going to take one, put it in front of you, you're going to score these points at the end of the game, and the other 2 you're going to place back over here. If they're all gone, well, if you make it to the top, well, you're out of luck, you're not going to get a tile. Alright, and finally we're going to talk about end game scoring. So remember, the game ends when the neutral cube on the platform is on the last space. You're going to do one final rotation, and then the neutral cube falls back in the ditch, and that's the end of the game. Alright, so you're going to score 6 additional things in addition to what you've been scoring during the game. Alright, so let's look at those 6 things. Alright, first, for any plaza that was not completed during the game, alright, everyone's going to score the bottom half of that plaza. So let's look at an example here. It doesn't really matter if you have 1, 2, or even 3 tokens around, you're only going to score once. So in this example, both purple and green have 1 token around this plaza. They're each going to score 5 points because it's 5 points at the bottom half of that plaza. Right, after that, you're going to score your academic points. We already talked about this earlier in the video. You're going to multiply your hat scoring by where your book value is on the track. All right, after that, you're going to score both the cathedral and wall tracks. Alright, now this scores in a very particular way. It scores 2 ways. Alright, how high you went up on the track scores automatically, so you're going to score the values on the black areas to the left or to the right. So in this example here, green would score 13 points both on the left and the right tracks, and purple would score 8 for the wall track and 13 for the cathedral track. Alright, after that, you're going to score your tokens, and that depends on how far to the right or to the left you were on the 2 tracks. Alright, for the cathedral, every red token, so the red ones you're collecting throughout the game, alright, is going to be worth according to how far to the right you've been. So for purple, right, because they're on the 3rd space, each red token is going to be worth 3 points, but for green, each red token is only going to be worth 2 points. Alright, if you look at the other track, it's going to be exactly the same. Even though green is higher, alright, each blue token for purple is going to be worth 3 points, and each blue token for green is only going to be worth 2 points. Alright, you're going to add all that stuff together. Alright, after that, you're going to score your walls. Alright, if you built 3 walls, 4 points, or 6 walls or more, you're going to get 18 points. Alright, the 5th one here is you're going to score your seals and your endgame bridge objectives. So remember, the seals, if you have your tokens reserving these seals, alright, you're going to score these at the end of the game. Then if you have any of these either on the bridge or in front of you because you reach the top of the cathedral, you're going to be scoring these individually. They're all mentioned in the back of the rulebook. And finally, for each egg you have left over at the end of the game, you're going to score Fibonacci style. So if you have 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're going to score 1, 3, 6, or 10 points. Add that to your score. Whoever has the most points is going to win the game of Praga. So let me know if I made any mistakes below or if you want any more clarifications. Also, click on the links if you want to see my review or full playthrough. We'll see you in the next one. Later.